Sure, here is the expanded part 1 of the story in simple English. It's about 1,300 words. It's engaging and written in third-person style without headings. The tall glass building stood shining under the afternoon sun. Inside, the air was filled with the quiet sounds of keyboards clicking and phones ringing. This was the office of one of the biggest companies in the city. The CEO of the company was a strong, confident woman named Ms. Reynolds. She was known for being smart and a little proud. Many people admired her, but some also found her a bit too sure of herself. Today was a special day in the office. Ms. Reynolds had invited some of her employees to a small gathering in the company's lounge. It was a chance for the workers to relax, talk, and get to know each other better. There was food on the tables and soft music playing. In the corner of the room stood a grand piano. It was old but polished, with shining black and white keys. "Ready to be played, Ms.?" Reynolds smiled as she looked around the room. She liked moments like this. It was a break from the busy days filled with meetings and decisions. She walked to the middle of the room and tapped a glass to get everyone's attention. The chatter quieted down. "I want to make today a little fun," she said with a playful smile. "Here's a challenge for all of you." She pointed toward the piano. "If anyone here can play Chopin, the famous pianist, I'll marry them." Her voice was light and joking, but her eyes sparkled with mischief. The room filled with laughter. Everyone thought she was joking. It sounded like a silly challenge, one that no one would take seriously. Most people in the room did not know how to play the piano well, let alone play Chopin, who was known for his difficult music. Among the group was a man named David. David worked in the company too, but not in the office. He was the janitor. Every day, David cleaned the halls, emptied the trash, and made sure the building looked nice. He was quiet and worked hard, but no one in the office really talked to him much. People saw him as just the janitor, not as someone who belonged to the group of smart workers and leaders. David was tall and strong, with calm eyes and a soft smile. He wore simple clothes and carried his cleaning tools like a badge of honor. What many did not know was that David had a deep love for music. When he was young, he learned to play the piano. He did not have lessons in a fancy school. Instead, he taught himself by listening to music and practicing whenever he could. Late at night, after finishing his work, he would sit quietly in his small apartment and play the piano. Chopin was his favorite composer. David loved the way Chopin's music could tell a story without words. It made him feel calm and happy. As Ms. Reynolds made her challenge, David's heart beat a little faster. He looked at the piano, and then at the people laughing around him. For a moment, he wondered if he should say something. But he was also afraid. How would they react if he tried to play? Would they laugh at him? Would Ms. Reynolds think it was a joke? David wiped his hands on his pants and quietly moved closer to the piano. The room had grown louder again with talking and laughter, but when David touched the keys softly, a hush fell over the crowd. People looked at him with surprise. The janitor? Playing Chopin. "It sounded impossible, Ms." Reynolds raised her eyebrows and smirked. She looked at David with a mix of curiosity and doubt. She thought this would be a funny moment, one to make the office laugh. Maybe she could show everyone that the janitor was just playing along with a silly joke. David sat down at the piano bench. He took a deep breath and looked at the sheet music. Lying on the stand was a copy of Chopin's Nocturne, one of the most beautiful and difficult pieces. His fingers hovered over the keys. The room grew silent again, like the calm before a storm. Then, with careful touch, David began to play. The first notes were soft and slow, like a gentle whisper. As he continued, the music filled the room with emotion. His fingers moved smoothly, and confidently each note sang with feeling and passion. The sound was pure and clear. It was not just music. It was a story being told through the piano. Some people in the room closed their eyes. Others stopped talking and listened, amazed. Even Ms. Reynolds could not hide her surprise. The smirk on her face disappeared, replaced by a look she had not shown before: respect. David did not look at the crowd. He was lost in the music. Years of practice and love for the piano shone in his playing. The janitor was no longer just a man who cleaned the floors. He was an artist, sharing his soul through the piano. The music moved like a river, calm in one moment, then rising like waves. It touched the hearts of everyone in the room. The busy office workers felt something, knew a deep calm and wonder. They saw David with new eyes. The lines that separated janitor from executive began to blur. When the last note gently faded away, the room stayed quiet for a moment. Then the people began to clap slowly, softly at first, then louder. The applause grew and filled the space with warmth. David smiled quietly. He felt proud, but calm, like he had done something honest and true. Ms. Reynolds stood up and walked toward David. Her eyes were bright and her voice was soft but clear. "I didn't expect this," she said. "You surprised me. You're very talented." David nodded, feeling shy but happy. The room buzzed with whispers. Some people were still trying to believe what they had just heard. That day, the office was not the same as before. Something had changed in the way people looked at each other. David's music had opened a door to respect, to understanding, and to seeing beyond what someone's job title said. As the gathering ended, David returned to his cleaning tools. But now, he walked a little taller. Inside, he felt a light in his heart. For the first time, he thought maybe his dreams were not so far away after all. Would you like me to continue with part 2? Certainly. Here is the expanded part 2 of the story in simple English. About 1,300 words. Engaging and in third-person style without headings. After the music stopped and the applause slowly died down, the room still felt full of energy. A group of employees who had been gathered in the lounge looked at David in a new way. For many of them, this was the first time they had seen the janitor not just as someone who cleaned the office, but as a person with a special talent. David sat quietly by the piano, his hands resting on his lap. His heart was beating fast, but he tried to stay calm. He knew this moment was important. It was more than just playing music. It was a chance to show everyone that he was more than his job title. Ms. Reynolds, the CEO, walked slowly towards him. The playful smirk she had worn before had disappeared. Instead, her eyes were full of surprise and respect. She was a woman used to being in control and making decisions, but this moment made her realize she had been wrong to judge someone so quickly. "David," she said softly, "I didn't know you could play like that. Where did you learn?" Looked up and smiled shyly. "I taught myself, ma'am. I didn't have lessons like some people. I just loved music and practiced when I could." Ms. Reynolds nodded thoughtfully. "That takes a lot of discipline. It's a lot of heart." The other employees started gathering around. Some wanted to shake David's hand. Others wanted to ask questions about his music. The air was filled with curiosity and admiration. For once, the barriers between workers seemed to fall away. One young woman, a marketing assistant named Sarah, spoke up. "David, that was amazing. I never knew you had such a gift." David thanked her quietly. He wasn't used to so much attention. Normally people barely noticed him at all. As the conversation grew, Ms. Reynolds took a step back and watched. She thought about the challenge she had made earlier. It had been a joke to her, a way to lighten the mood. But now it felt different. It had become a moment of truth. Later that day, Ms. Reynolds called David into her office. The room was bright and full of sunlight, with large windows looking out over the city. It was a place where big decisions were made. David entered carefully. He felt nervous but also hopeful. Ms. Reynolds smiled warmly and gestured for him to sit. "I want to apologize if my challenge felt like a joke to you," she said. "I didn't expect anyone to actually take it seriously. But you showed me something important today." David shook his head. "No need to apologize, ma'am. I understood it was just a joke. I only wanted to share my music because it means a lot to me." Ms. Reynolds leaned forward. "I want to help you, David. You have talent and I don't." "Want it to go unnoticed?" David's eyes widened. "Really? How?" "There are programs, events, and opportunities where you could play for others, meet musicians, and learn even more. I can introduce you to people who can support you. You don't have to keep your talent hidden." David felt a warm feeling in his chest. For years he had dreamed of sharing his music with more people, but never thought it could happen. A door was opening. Over the next few weeks, David found his life changing. Slowly but surely, Ms. Reynolds kept her word. She invited him to company events where employees could relax and show their talents. David played the piano at one event, and the applause was louder than before. More than that, Ms. Reynolds introduced him to a local music teacher who offered to give David free lessons. The teacher was kind and encouraging. She helped David learn new techniques and improve his skills. David was excited to practice and grow as a musician. In the office, people started treating David differently. They greeted him with smiles and stopped to ask about his music. Some employees even asked if he would play for their families or friends. David felt proud and accepted in a way he never had before. However, it wasn't always easy. Had his work as a janitor to do, and sometimes balancing his cleaning duties with his music felt tiring. Some people still looked at him as just the janitor, and a few made small jokes that made him uncomfortable. But David kept his head high and focused on his dreams. One afternoon, Sarah, the marketing assistant, stopped by to chat while David was cleaning near the piano. "David, have you ever thought about performing in public outside the company?" David smiled thoughtfully. "I have, but I never thought it was possible. I'm just a janitor." Sarah shook her head. "You're more than that. Talent like yours should be shared with the world. I can help you find places to play. Maybe at a community center or a local concert." David felt grateful. "Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot." As the weeks passed, David's confidence grew. He practiced every night after work, learning new pieces and perfecting Chopin's music. His fingers moved faster and smoother. His love for music deepened. One evening, as David sat at his piano in his small apartment, he thought about how far he had come. From a quiet janitor in a big office to a man who could share his gift with others. It felt like a dream. At work, the next day, Ms. Reynolds surprised David by inviting him to a meeting with some of the company's leaders. They wanted to hear his story and learn how the company could support hidden talents like his. David told them about his journey, his passion for music, and his hopes for the future. The leaders were impressed. They promised to create programs to help employees share their talents, no matter their job title. David's story became an example of how kindness, respect, and opportunity could change lives. One afternoon, Ms. Reynolds jokingly reminded David of her original challenge. "Remember when I said I'd marry anyone who could play Chopin?" She laughed. "Well, I didn't expect you to win." David smiled back. "I never took that part seriously." "But you made me think," she said softly. "Talent and heart don't come from titles or money. They come from who you are inside." David nodded. He felt proud that his music had helped change not only how people saw him, but also how the company thought about its workers. The story of the janitor who played Chopin spread through the city. People were inspired by David's courage and talent. He was invited to play at community events, schools, and even local radio shows. David never forgot where he came from or the hard work it took to get there. He kept his humble heart, but also learned to believe in himself. His music became a symbol of hope for many who dreamed of more. Through the challenge of one playful CEO, a simple janitor had shown the world that talent and passion can break down walls, and sometimes all it takes is one moment of courage to change a life forever. Would you like me to continue with part 3? Sure. Here is the expanded part 3 of the story in simple English. It's about 1,300 words. Engaging and in third-person style without headings, David's performance had left a strong mark on everyone in the office. People could no longer see him just as a janitor. His music had opened their eyes to a new side of him, a side full of talent, emotion, and beauty. But beyond the office walls, David's journey was just beginning. After the initial excitement, David found himself invited to play at different events. The company's leaders, impressed by his skill, organized a small concert in the building's main hall. The event was open to all employees and their families. David was nervous, but eager, wanted to share his music with a wider audience. On the day of the concert, the hall was filled with chairs and a large stage. A beautiful grand piano stood in the center, gleaming under the lights. Employees arrived with their families, chatting and smiling. Many had heard about David's talent and were curious to hear him play again. David arrived early, sat at the piano, running his fingers softly over the keys. His heart was full of both excitement and nervousness. He thought about all the times he had practiced alone in his apartment, dreaming of moments like this. Now those dreams were coming true. When the concert began, the lights dimmed and David stepped forward. The room fell silent. Everyone waited for the first notes. David started to play Chopin's Nocturne again. This time, his fingers were steadier, his touch more confident. The music flowed like a gentle river, calming and beautiful. The audience listened quietly, absorbed in the sound. Some closed their eyes. Others smiled softly. As David played, he felt a deep connection with the people in the room. His music was no longer just for himself. It was a gift he was sharing with others. The applause at the end was louder and longer than before. David bowed his head humbly, feeling grateful. After the concert, many people came to speak with him. They told him how much they had enjoyed the music and how proud they were of him. David felt a warm glow inside. For the first time, he truly believed in his gift. Ms. Reynolds approached him with a smile. "David, you were wonderful. You've inspired all of us." David thanked her quietly. "I just love to play." The company started to offer David more opportunities. They arranged music workshops and asked him to teach others who wanted to learn. David agreed happily. Teaching gave him joy, and he loved sharing his passion. Outside work, David's life was changing too. His music teacher helped him improve his skills every week. David practiced daily, learning new pieces and perfecting old ones. Sometimes he stayed up late, his fingers moving over the keys as the moonlight filled his room. David's friends and neighbors began to notice his new confidence. Some had always known he was talented, but now others could see it too. People asked him to play at community centers, charity events, and local gatherings. David's music brought joy to many hearts. One day, a local radio station invited David for an interview. Nervous but excited, he spoke about his journey from janitor to musician. He shared how music had helped him through hard times and given him hope. The radio listeners were touched by his story. David's story became an inspiration for many people in the city. It showed that no matter where you come from or what job you do, talent and passion can shine through. David's music reminded everyone that dreams are worth chasing, but with success came new challenges. Balancing work, music lessons, teaching, and public performances was not easy. David often felt tired. Some days he worried he might not be able to keep up. But his love for music kept him going. One afternoon, as David was cleaning the office, a group of employees approached him. They'd heard he was performing soon at a charity event. They asked if they could help spread the word and support him. David smiled warmly. "Thank you. That means a lot." His coworkers' kindness showed that his music had created new friendships and respect. The office felt more like a community. Ms. Reynolds continued to support David. She spoke about his talent in meetings and encouraged others to value the gifts of every employee. Her leadership began to change the company culture. David's story also reached the media. A local newspaper wrote an article about the janitor who played Chopin. The article told how David's courage and talent had broken barriers and brought hope. People across the city read and shared the story. With growing attention, David was invited to perform at a city hall event. It was a big opportunity. David felt proud but also nervous about playing in front of so many people. On the day of the event, David arrived early, carrying his sheet music and a small bag. The hall was decorated with flags and banners. City leaders, guests, and citizens gathered to celebrate culture and talent. David took a deep breath and sat at the piano on stage. The bright lights shone on him, and the crowd grew quiet. He began to play a new piece he had been practicing for weeks. The music was lively and full of hope. As his fingers danced across the keys, the audience felt the joy and strength in his performance. When he finished, the crowd stood up and cheered. David bowed deeply, feeling a mix of happiness and pride. He had come a long way from the quiet janitor who once hid his talent. After the performance, David was invited to speak. He thanked everyone for their support and spoke about the power of music to bring people together. He encouraged others to follow their dreams, no matter how difficult the path. David's words touched many hearts. People approached him afterward to share their own stories and dreams. David realized his journey was more than just about music. It was about hope, courage, and believing in oneself. Despite the success, David stayed humble, continued to work. His job at the company, keeping his routine but always making time for music. His life was fuller and richer than before. One evening, as David sat by his window, playing a soft melody on the piano, he thought about how much had changed. The challenge from Ms. Reynolds had sparked a chain of events he never imagined. David smiled quietly. He knew that music was not just about playing notes. It was about touching lives and breaking down walls. His story was a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected people have the greatest gifts. David's journey continued, filled with new challenges and joys. But through it all, he held on to his passion and the belief that music could change the world, one note at a time. Would you like me to continue with part 4? Certainly. Here's the expanded part 4 of the story in simple English. About 1,300 words, engaging and in third-person style without headings, David's life had changed in ways he never imagined. But he knew that the journey was not over with. Every new opportunity to share his music, he grew more confident. Yet he remained humble and kind, never forgetting where he came from, or the hard work it took to get there. One morning, David arrived early at the company. The building was quiet and peaceful before the busy day began. He headed to the lounge. Where the grand piano stood, it had become a familiar place, a symbol of his journey and dreams. David sat at the piano and played softly, warming up his fingers with gentle melodies. As he played, Ms. Reynolds entered the room. She smiled warmly and took a seat nearby. "David," she said quietly, "I've been thinking a lot about what you've done here, not just with your music, but with the way you've brought people together." David looked up, surprised. "Thank you, ma'am. Just love playing music." Ms. Reynolds nodded. "I know, but you've done more than that. You've helped change how we see each other. You've shown that everyone has something special." Inside, no matter their job or background, David felt a warm glow in his heart. He had hoped his music could make a difference. But hearing it from the CEO made it feel real. Over the next few weeks, the company began new programs inspired by David's story. They started talent shows, art exhibitions, and workshops where employees could share their passions. The office grew into a place of creativity and respect. People were kinder and more open to learning about each other. David was invited to lead some of the music workshops, taught co-workers who wanted to learn piano basics and encouraged them to find their own style. Watching others discover the joy of music made David happy. Outside the company, David's life continued to grow. His scholarship to the music school was a dream come true. The teachers were skilled and supportive, helping him develop new techniques and explore different styles of music. At school, David met other students who shared his love for music. Some were young and had been trained since childhood. David felt a little nervous at first, but soon realized that passion and hard work mattered more than age or background. One day, the music school organized a recital for students to perform. David prepared a special piece by Chopin that he had worked on for months. He practiced carefully every day, determined to do his best. On the night of the recital, the hall was filled with parents, teachers, and music lovers. David sat at the piano, the lights warm and soft. His heart beat fast. But he took a deep breath and began to play. The music flowed from his fingers like a story told with love and emotion. Each note spoke of his journey from quiet janitor to proud musician. The audience was captivated. When the last note faded, the hall burst into applause. David smiled and bowed. It was one of the proudest moments of his life. After the recital, a woman approached him. She was a music producer from a local radio station. "David, your playing is beautiful," she said. "I'd like to invite you to record a short album and share your music with more people." David was amazed. This was an opportunity he had never dreamed of. He accepted with gratitude. The recording sessions were new and exciting. David worked with the producer to select pieces that showed his style and passion. He learned about microphones, sound mixing, and the art of recording. When the album was finished, it was played on the radio. Listeners called in to praise David's music and shared their own stories of hope and inspiration. David felt proud that his music could touch so many hearts. Even with success, David stayed grounded. He continued working at the company, teaching music, and practicing daily. His life was busy, but full of meaning. One afternoon, David received an invitation to perform at a special event hosted by the city's mayor. The event was to celebrate diversity and talent in the community. David felt honored and nervous. The day of the event, the city hall was decorated with bright colors and banners. People from all walks of life gathered to celebrate culture and unity. David sat at the grand piano on stage. The crowd fell silent as he began to play a new piece he had composed himself. The music was soft at first, then grew stronger and joyful. It told a story of hope, courage, and the beauty of coming together. As David played, many in the audience wiped tears from their eyes. The music moved them deeply. When he finished, the applause was long and full of love. After the performance, the mayor approached David. "Your music has brought this city together today," he said. "Thank you for sharing your gift." David smiled. "Thank you for the chance to do so." In the weeks that followed, David's story continued to inspire. He spoke at schools, community centers, and events, encouraging others to believe in their dreams and talents. One day, David was invited to a national conference on inclusion and opportunity. Leaders from all over the country gathered to discuss how to create fair and respectful workplaces. David shared his journey, the challenges he faced, support he received, and the power of music to break down barriers. His words moved many, and ideas began to form about creating more programs like the one in his company. As David's influence grew, he never forgot the small moments that had shaped him. He remembered the quiet nights practicing alone, the doubts he had felt, and the kindness of people who believed in him. At work, David continued his daily tasks with pride. The building was not just a place to clean anymore, it was a place where he had grown, shared, and found friendship. One day, Miss Reynolds surprised David with a small gift, a beautiful music box that played Chopin's Nocturne. "For you," she said, "to remind you how far you've come and how much further you can go." David thanked her with a smile and a promise to keep playing his music with heart. Life was full of new challenges and opportunities, but David faced each day with courage and hope. His story was no longer just about a janitor who played piano. It was about a man who believed in himself and inspired others to do the same. As David played his music, whether on stage or in quiet moments alone, he knew that every note was a step toward a brighter future. His journey showed that talent, kindness, and courage could change lives and that dreams are always worth chasing. Would you like me to continue with part 5? David's story had spread far beyond the walls of the office where he once worked quietly as a janitor. He had become a symbol of hope and courage for many people who faced hard times and felt forgotten. But for David, the journey was still about music, connection, and inspiring others. One morning, David woke up early in his small apartment. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft glow through the window. He sat at his old piano and played a gentle melody, feeling peace in the familiar notes. Music had become his daily companion, his way to start the day with hope and purpose. After practicing, David prepared for another busy day. He still worked as a janitor at the company, but his role had changed. Now, people saw him not just as the man who cleaned floors, but as a respected musician and teacher. David enjoyed his work and took pride in it, but music was the light that guided him. At the company, a new program had started. It was designed to help employees share their talents and dreams. David helped organize workshops and events, encouraging others to find their passions and believe in themselves. The office had become a place where respect and kindness grew every day. One afternoon, David was invited to speak at a local school. The students listened closely as he told his story, from the janitor who played Chopin to the musician who dreamed of more. He shared how music helped him through difficult times and how believing in yourself can change a life. The children were inspired. Many told David about their own dreams, and he encouraged them to keep working hard and never give up. "Your dreams are important," he said. "No matter where you come from, you can achieve great things." David's message spread through the community. He played at charity events, helping raise money for those in need. His music brought comfort to hospitals, joy to nursing homes, and hope to many hearts. One evening, David received a special invitation. It was to perform at a citywide celebration of culture and talent. The event would be held in a grand theater, filled with people from all walks of life. David prepared carefully. He chose pieces that told his story, music full of emotion, strength, and hope. When the night of the performance came, he felt a mix of nerves and excitement as he stepped onto the stage. The bright lights shone down, and the audience grew silent. David sat at the piano, took a deep breath, and began to play. The music filled the theater, touching every soul. The notes told of struggle and triumph, of dreams born in quiet moments and realized through courage. The audience was moved to tears, and cheers after the final note. The applause was thunderous. David bowed deeply, feeling joy and gratitude. Backstage, people came to congratulate him, city leaders, fellow musicians, and strangers whose lives he had touched. David smiled, knowing that this was more than a performance. It was a celebration of hope. In the days that followed, David's music reached even more people. Radio stations played his recordings, and invitations came from across the country. Despite all the attention, David stayed true to himself. He continued working, teaching, and practicing. His heart remained humble and full of kindness. One quiet afternoon, David visited a local community center where children gathered to learn music. He sat with a young girl who was just starting to play the piano. Her fingers trembled on the keys, but David encouraged her gently. "Keep practicing," he said. "Music is like a friend that grows with you." The girl smiled, inspired by his words. As David looked around the room, he thought about how far he had come. From a janitor who dreamed quietly in the night to a man who shared his gift with the world, he knew that his journey was about more than music. It was about breaking down walls, building bridges, and helping others find their own light. David played a soft melody, the notes floating through the room like a gentle breeze. He smiled, knowing that every note was a step forward for him and for everyone who dared to dream. His story showed that no matter where life begins, with courage, passion, and kindness, the future can be bright. And sometimes a simple challenge can change everything. Would you like me to help you with anything else?